Jake Morrison looked up at the huge glass dome above his head. Stars filled the black sky like tiny diamonds. He was far from Earth, farther than any human had ever been before. The Galactic Medical Institute sat on a space station called Nexus 7. It was the biggest school in the galaxy for doctors and healers. Jake walked down the long hallway with his books in his hands. Other students moved past him, but they were not human. Some had blue skin and long arms. Others looked like walking rocks made of crystal. A few floated in the air like ghosts made of light. He felt small and out of place. Jake was one of only 3 humans in the whole school. The other 2 were Lisa and Ben. They came from different parts of Earth, but they stuck together because they were the only humans around. The school had students from 47 different worlds. Each race had their own way of healing. The Zephyrians could see sickness by looking at the energy that came from bodies. The Kefter could fix broken bones by touching them and changing the tiny pieces that made them up. The Vashanari could go inside people's minds and fix their brains from the inside. Jake stopped at his locker. It was made of some kind of metal that changed color when he touched it. Everything in this place was more advanced than anything on Earth. The computers could think like people. The walls could heal themselves if they got damaged. Even the water fountains could make any kind of drink you wanted just by thinking about it. "Hey, Jake," said Lisa as she walked up to him. She had red hair and green eyes. She was smart, maybe the smartest human who ever lived. But even she had trouble keeping up with their alien classmates. "How was your test?" Jake asked. Lisa made a face. "Bad, really bad. I got a 67%. Dr. Quental said that was good for a human, but the Zephyrian kid next to me got 98% without even trying." Jake nodded. He knew how she felt. Yesterday, he had watched his study partner fix a broken heart in less than 5 minutes. The alien just put his hands on the practice dummy, and the heart started working again. When Jake tried the same thing, nothing happened. They walked to class together. The classroom was huge, with seats that could change shape to fit any kind of body. Jake sat in a regular chair, but the student next to him sat in something that looked like a bowl filled with water. Professor Keth walked in. He was one of the crystal people, tall and thin with sharp edges. His body was see-through, and light moved through him like he was made of glass. When he talked, his voice sounded like music. "Today we will learn about fixing hearts that have stopped beating," Professor Keth said. His voice filled the room without him having to speak loud. "Each species has their own way to bring life back to a dead heart." Jake opened his notebook. It was made of some kind of smart paper that could record everything the teacher said and turn it into text. But Jake still liked to write things down by hand. It helped him remember better. "The Zephyrians use bioelectric fields," Professor Keth said. A Zephyrian student raised her hand. She had purple skin and 4 arms. Blue lightning danced between her fingers. "We can see the energy patterns in the heart," she said. "When the heart stops, we just put the energy back in the right places." Professor Keth nodded. "Very good. The Kethter way is different." He held up his crystal hand. It started to glow with white light. "We change the heart at the level of atoms. We fix each tiny piece until the whole heart works again." A ghost-like Vashanari floated up from her seat. She had no solid body, just a shape made of silver light. "My people go into the mind and restart the signals that control the heart. We fix the brain, and the brain fixes the heart." Jake raised his hand. Professor Keth's crystal eyes looked at him. "Yes, Jake? How do humans fix hearts that have stopped?" The room got quiet. All the alien students turned to look at Jake. Some of them made sounds that the translation computers turned into polite laughter. "Human methods are quite basic," Professor Keth said. He did not mean to be mean, but Jake felt embarrassed anyway. You push on the chest with your hands and blow air into the mouth. It is simple, but not very effective. Veltar, Jake's Zephyrian study partner, leaned over. Your people do not have proper medical tools yet, he said quietly. Do not feel bad. Every species starts with simple methods. Jake looked down at his notebook. He had written CPR, chest compressions, and rescue breathing. Next to it, he had drawn a simple picture of someone pushing on another person's chest. It looked so basic compared to all the amazing things his classmates could do. After class, Jake walked to the practice room. This was where students could try out what they learned on training dummies that looked and felt like real people. The dummies could get sick or hurt in different ways, and students had to heal them. Jake picked a dummy that looked like a human. It was lying on a metal table, not breathing. The computer said its heart had stopped 5 minutes ago. In real life, that would be very serious. The brain could die if the heart did not start again soon. Jake put his hands on the dummy's chest. He started pushing hard and fast, just like he learned in medical school on Earth. He counted to 30, then tilted the dummy's head back and gave it 2 breaths. Then he started pushing again. The dummy's chest moved up and down as Jake worked. But nothing else happened. The heart did not start. The computer still said the dummy was dead. Veltar came over to watch. His forearms moved in a way that meant he was curious. What are you doing? CPR, Jake said, still pushing on the chest. Sweat was starting to form on his forehead. It is how humans try to restart a heart. May I try? Veltar asked. Jake stepped back. Veltar put his hands on the dummy's chest. Blue light came from his palms. The light went into the dummy's body. Jake could see it moving through the chest like lightning in a bottle. The dummy's eyes opened. It took a breath. The computer beeped and said the heart was working again. How long did that take? Jake asked. 15 seconds, Veltar said. He did not brag about it. To him, it was as easy as turning on a light. Jake looked at the dummy. It was sitting up now, completely healthy. He had been pushing on another dummy for 10 minutes, and nothing had happened. Veltar had fixed one in 15 seconds. Your way is much faster, Jake said. Veltar's skin changed color a little. That was how Zephyrians showed they were thinking. Speed is important in medicine, but your way is interesting too. You use only your hands and your breath. No special power, no tools, just the strength of your body. Jake had never thought about it that way. To him, CPR was just something every human doctor learned. It was basic. But maybe basic was not always bad. The next day, Jake watched Veltar practice on different dummies. Each time, the blue light went into the body and fixed whatever was wrong. Hearts started beating, lungs started breathing, brains started thinking. It was like magic. But Jake noticed something. When the dummy was too badly hurt, even Veltar's power could not fix it. The blue light would go in, but nothing would happen. The dummy would stay dead. Why does it not work sometimes? Jake asked. Veltar's skin turned dark purple. That meant he was frustrated. When too much time passes, or when the damage is too great, the bioelectric field cannot find the right patterns to follow. It is like trying to fix a broken mirror when all the pieces have been scattered. Jake nodded. He understood. Even amazing alien medicine had limits. That night, Jake sat in his small room and looked out at the stars. He thought about home, about Earth, about all the doctors there who only had their hands and their knowledge to help people. They did not have magic powers or crystal bodies or energy fields, but they still saved lives every day. Maybe being human was not as bad as he thought. Maybe there was something to be said for doing things the simple way, even if it was not as fast or as flashy as what the aliens could do. Jake picked up his notebook and started writing. Tomorrow, he would pay more attention in class. He would learn everything he could about alien medicine. But he would not forget the human way of doing things. Something told him that one day that might be important. 3 months later, Jake felt more at home in the school. He still could not do the amazing things his alien friends could do, but he was learning. His grades were getting better, and Professor Keth had even said his understanding of basic medicine was very good. The big test was coming soon. All the students had to go on a real ship and help real doctors take care of real patients. It was called the field practice, and everyone was excited about it. "I heard we are going on the Star Runner," said Ben, the third human student. He was tall and thin with black hair. He was good at remembering things, which helped a lot in medical. "School, that is a passenger ship," Lisa said. "It carries people between different worlds. We will probably just check people for small problems and maybe help with space sickness." Jake was not so sure. In his experience, things were never as simple as they seemed. But he was looking forward to using what he had learned in a real situation. The day came for them to leave. All 40 students from their class walked onto the Star Runner. It was a huge ship, bigger than anything Jake had ever seen. It had rooms for 5,000 passengers and a medical bay that was better equipped than most hospitals on Earth. Captain Hayes met them at the dock. He was human, which made Jake feel good. The captain was older, maybe 50, with gray hair and kind eyes. He had been flying ships between worlds for 20 years. "Welcome aboard," Captain Hayes said. "We have got a full load of passengers heading to New Terra. The trip will take 4 days. Most of the time, you will be dealing with small problems. Motion sickness, headaches, maybe a broken bone or two from people who are not used to low gravity." Dr. Zixandra was leading the student group. She was a Varshonari, one of the ghost-like people made of silver light. She was very smart and very kind, even though she looked scary to human eyes. "Students will work in teams of 4, she said. Her voice sounded like wind chimes. "Each team will have 1 student from each year level. You will be supervised by our medical staff, but you are expected to handle basic cases on your own." Jake was put in a team with Veltar, a second-year Kethter student named Flux, and a fourth-year Vashanari named Echo. They were assigned to level 7, which had mostly families with children. The first day went well. Jake helped a little Zephyrian girl who had eaten too much and felt sick. Veltar fixed a man's back pain with his bioelectric powers. Flux helped an old woman whose bones were getting weak. Echo went into the mind of a boy who could not sleep and helped him relax. Jake was starting to think this would be easy. On the second day, things started to go wrong. Jake was eating lunch in the student dining room when the ship suddenly shook. Not a normal shake like when they changed course, but a violent shake that threw people from their chairs. The lights flickered. Somewhere far away, an alarm started to ring. "What was that?" Lisa asked. She was sitting at the next table with her team. The alarm got louder. A voice came over the ship's speakers. It was Captain Hayes, but he sounded worried. "All passengers, please return to your rooms immediately. We have a problem with the engine. Medical teams to stations." This is not a drill. Jake and his team ran to the medical bay. Dr. Zixandra was floating near the main computer, her silver body glowing brighter than usual. Other instructors were moving quickly, getting equipment ready. "What is happening?" Veltar asked. "Engine failure," Dr. Zixandra said without looking up from the computer. "Something went wrong with the power core. The captain is trying to fix it, but there might be radiation leaks." Jake felt his stomach drop. Radiation was bad news. On Earth, people wore special suits to protect themselves from it. Too much radiation could make you very sick or even kill you. The ship shook again, harder this time. The lights went out for a few seconds, then came back on dim and red. Emergency power, Dr. Zixandra said. All students, get the emergency medical kits ready. If there is a radiation leak, we will have many sick people very soon. Jake ran to get the emergency kit from his team's station. Inside were basic tools and medicines that worked without power. Most of the fancy alien medical equipment needed electricity to work. Another shake. This time, Jake heard a sound like metal being torn apart. The red lights flickered. Captain Hayes' voice came over the speakers again. He sounded out of breath. Medical teams, we have a radiation leak on levels 3 through 6. Passengers in those areas are being moved to safe zones, but some may have been exposed. Prepare for multiple casualties. Jake's hands shook as he checked the emergency kit. He had never dealt with radiation sickness before. On Earth, it was rare, but he remembered reading about it. Radiation damaged the body from the inside, destroying cells and making organs fail. The first patients started arriving 10 minutes later. They came on stretchers, carried by crew members wearing protective suits. Most were still awake, but looked very sick. Their skin was red, like they had been in the sun too long. Some were throwing up. Radiation poisoning, Dr. Zixandra said as she floated over the first patient. Moderate exposure. He should recover with treatment. But when she tried to use her healing powers, nothing happened. The silver light that usually came from her body was weak and flickering. I cannot connect to his mind, she said, sounding confused. The radiation is interfering with my abilities. Professor Keth tried next. His crystal body should have been able to fix the damage at the cellular level. But when he put his hands on the patient, his body just flickered like a broken light bulb. The radiation is disrupting our powers, he said. I cannot control matter properly. More patients came in. Soon, the medical bay was full of sick people. The alien doctors and students tried to help, but their special abilities were not working. The radiation in the air was messing up there. Powers like static on a radio. Jake watched as his classmates struggled. Veltar tried to use his bioelectric healing on a woman who could barely breathe. But instead of the usual blue light, only weak sparks came from his hands. It is not working, Veltar said. He sounded scared. I cannot heal anyone. The fancy medical equipment was having problems too. The scanners that could see inside bodies were giving wrong information. The machines that could regrow damaged organs were shutting down. Even the computers that helped diagnose problems were acting strange. Dr. Zixandra floated to the center of the room. Her silver body was dimmer than Jake had ever seen it. Students, we need to use basic medical techniques, she said. Our advanced methods are not working. We must rely on simple tools and manual procedures. Jake looked around the room. His alien classmates looked lost. They had spent their whole lives learning to use their special powers and high-tech equipment. Now they had to work like doctors from 1,000 years ago. But Jake was not lost. He had grown up learning basic medicine. On Earth, doctors did not have magic powers. They used their hands, their eyes, and simple tools. They had to figure out what was wrong by talking to patients and doing physical exams. Jake went to the nearest patient, a middle-aged human man who was conscious but very weak. Jake knelt beside him and took his pulse the old-fashioned way, pressing 2 fingers against the man's wrist. The pulse was fast but steady. Jake looked at the man's eyes. They were clear, which was good. He checked the man's skin. It was red and hot, but not blistering. How do you feel? Jake asked. Sick, the man said. Really sick. Like I have the worst flu ever. Jake nodded. That was normal for radiation poisoning. He got some water and helped the man drink it. Staying hydrated was important. Other students were watching him. they saw that Jake was not panicking. He was, working calmly, checking each patient and helping them as much as he could with simple methods. "How do you know what to do?" asked Flux, the crystal student. His body was barely glowing at all. "Basic medicine," Jake said as he helped another patient sit up. "When you do not have fancy tools, you use what you have. Your eyes, your hands, your brain." More patients kept coming in. Jake moved from one to another, checking vital signs, giving water, making people comfortable. He could not cure the radiation poisoning, but he could help manage the symptoms. Then the worst news came. A crew member ran into the medical bay. He was wearing a radiation suit, but Jake could see fear in his eyes through the helmet. "Captain, Hayes is down," the crew member said. He went into the engine room to stop the leak manually. He sealed it, but he was exposed to a massive dose of radiation. He collapsed on the bridge. Dr. Zixandra's body flickered brighter for a moment. "Bring him here immediately." Jake felt his heart sink. Captain Hayes had saved everyone on the ship by stopping the radiation leak. But he had paid a terrible price. 2 crew members brought the captain in on a stretcher. Jake could see immediately that it was bad. The captain was unconscious. His skin was not just red, but starting to blister. His breathing was shallow and fast. Doctor Zixandra tried to scan him with her powers, but could only manage a weak connection. "Severe radiation exposure," she said quietly. "His cellular structure is breaking down rapidly. With our normal equipment, we might be able to save him. But in these conditions, ... She did not finish the sentence. Everyone understood. Without their powers and advanced technology, Captain Hayes was going to die. Jake stared at the unconscious man who had saved them all. The captain had risked everything to protect 5,000 passengers and crew. There had to be something they could do. But as Jake looked around, the Captain Hayes lay on the medical table, not moving. His face was pale, except for the red burns on his skin. The machines around him beeped slowly, showing that his body was failing. Dr. Zixandra floated above him, trying to use her powers to look inside his mind. Her silver body glowed weakly as she worked. After a few minutes, she pulled back, looking defeated. "His brain activity is dropping fast," she said. "The radiation has damaged too many cells. I cannot make a proper connection to his consciousness." "Professor." Keth stepped forward. His crystal body was dim, but he put his hands on the captain's chest anyway. White light flickered between his fingers as he tried to fix the damage at the cellular level. Jake watched the crystal professor work. Keth's whole body was shaking with effort. Sweat that looked like liquid light was dripping from his crystal skin. After 10 minutes, Professor Keth stepped back. "I can repair some of the damage, but not fast enough. The radiation is still destroying cells faster than I can fix them. And my powers are too weak in this environment." Other instructors tried next. Dr. Yulton, who could control time on a small scale, tried to reverse the damage by making the captain's cells go back to before they were hurt. But the radiation interference made it impossible to control time properly. Master Zahn, who could transfer life energy from healthy people to sick ones, tried to give some of his own life force to the captain. But the radiation acted like a wall, blocking the energy transfer. One by one, the best doctors in the galaxy tried to save Captain Hayes. Each one used techniques that had worked for thousands of years. Each one failed. Jake stood at the back of the crowd watching. He felt helpless. All around him were beings who could do impossible things, who had saved countless lives with their amazing powers. But now, when it mattered most, none of it was working. "His heart is getting weaker," said Dr. Zixandra, checking the monitors. "Blood pressure is dropping. Brain activity's almost gone." The beeping from the machines was getting slower. Jake knew what that meant. Captain Hayes was dying. Perhaps we should contact his family, suggested Professor Keth quietly. Let them know he died a hero. No, said Dr. Zixandra. We do not give up. There must be something else we can try. But Jake could see in her dim silver glow that even she was losing hope. They had tried everything that advanced galactic medicine had to offer. Nothing worked. The room grew quiet except for the slow beeping of the machines. Students and instructors stood around the dying man, feeling helpless. Some of the alien students were making sounds that the translators said meant sadness and frustration. Jake looked at Captain Hayes. The man had saved everyone on the ship. He had walked into deadly radiation to stop the leak, knowing it would probably kill him. He had sacrificed himself for 5,000 strangers, and now he was going to die because the most advanced medical minds in the galaxy could not figure out how to save him. Jake stepped forward. Wait, he said. Let me try something. The room turned to look at him. 40 pairs of alien eyes focused on the human student. Some looked confused. Others looked sorry for him. Dr. Zixandra's silver form flickered. Jake, your concern is admirable. But if we cannot save him with quantum healing and cellular reconstruction, I do not see how basic human medicine can help. Maybe that is exactly the point, Jake said. He walked closer to the table. Maybe all this advanced stuff is too complicated. Maybe we need to go back to basics. Professor Keth's crystal body shifted colors, which meant he was thinking hard. Explain what you mean. Jake looked down at Captain Hayes. The man's chest was barely moving. His heart was beating maybe once every 2 seconds, instead of once per second, like it should. All your powers depend on energy, Jake said. Bioelectricity, quantum fields, cellular manipulation, time control. But the radiation is messing up all forms of energy in this area. It is like trying to use a radio during a lightning storm. Veltar stepped forward. His blue skin had turned pale with worry. That is true. But without energy, how can we heal anyone? Jake knelt down next to the table. He put his ear close to Captain Hayes' chest and listened. The heartbeat was very weak and irregular. We do not use energy, Jake said. We use physics. Simple, basic. Physics. He looked up at the confused faces around him. CPR does not need any power source. It does not use energy fields or quantum mechanics. It is just pushing on the chest to make the heart pump blood and breathing air into the lungs to get oxygen into the blood. Dr. Zixandra floated closer. But Jake, look at the monitors. His heart has been stopped for over 3 minutes. His brain activity is nearly zero. Even on your world, doctors would declare him dead by now. Jake shook his head. Not dead, dying. There is a difference. He put his hands on Captain Hayes' chest, one palm over the other, just like he had learned in medical school. The captain's chest felt hot under his hands from the radiation burns. This will not work, said Echo, the 4th-year Vashanari student. The damage is too extensive. His cellular matrix is collapsing. Jake ignored her. He started pushing on the captain's chest, hard and fast. 30 compressions. Then he tilted the captain's head back and gave him 2 breaths. Then 30 more compressions. The other students watched in silence. The monitors showed the artificial heartbeat that Jake was creating, but no signs of real life returning. Jake, Dr. Zixandra said gently after a few minutes, you must accept that he is beyond help. Even your own species' medical protocols would have stopped by now. Jake kept pushing. His arms were starting to hurt, but he did not stop. Human protocols say to continue CPR until the person wakes up, until help arrives, or until you are too tired to continue. I am not too tired yet. But it has been 6 minutes, Veltar said. His brain has been without oxygen for too long. Maybe, Jake said, still pumping the captain's chest. But maybe not. The radiation might have slowed down his metabolism. Cold water can keep a human alive longer without oxygen. Maybe radiation does the same thing. It was just a guess, but Jake had to try. He had to believe that there was still a chance. The alien students started to look uncomfortable. They were not used to seeing someone work so hard for so long without results. In their world, medicine either worked quickly or it did not work at all. "This is difficult to watch," whispered Flux to another student. "The human is in denial." But Jake was not in denial. He was in determination. Every human doctor learned about cases where CPR had brought people back after 10 minutes, 15 minutes, even longer in special circumstances. It was rare, but it happened. The key was to never give up. Jake continued the compressions. His back was starting to hurt from bending over the table. Sweat was dripping down his face. But he kept going. After 15 minutes, some of the students started to leave. They could not watch anymore. It was too painful to see someone refuse to accept reality. But a few stayed. Veltar remained close by, his blue skin flickering with worried energy. Lisa and Ben, the other human students, came closer to watch. "Should we help him?" Ben asked quietly. "I do not think so," Lisa said. "He is doing it right. Adding more people might mess up his rhythm." Dr. Zixandra stayed too. Her silver body was dim, but she kept watching the monitors. Jake could not tell if she was hoping for a miracle or just waiting for him to give up. 20 minutes passed. Jake's arms were screaming with pain, but he did not stop. Push, push, push. Breathe, breathe. Push, push, push. The monitors showed the same thing they had shown for 20 minutes. Artificial heartbeat created by the compressions, but no real heart activity, no brain waves, no signs of life. "Jake," Dr. Zixandra said quietly, "you have done everything possible. You have gone far beyond what anyone could expect, but he is gone." Jake looked up at her. His face was red from effort and wet with sweat, but his eyes were determined. "No," he said simply. "Not yet." He went back to the compressions. Push, push, push. Breathe, breathe. Push, push, push. Some of the remaining students were starting to whisper among themselves. They used words like futile and irrational and emotional attachment. But Jake did not care what they thought. He had made a promise to himself. He would not give up on Captain Hayes. The man had not given up on them when he walked into that radiation-filled engine room. Jake would not give up on him now. 20-5 minutes. 30 minutes. Jake's whole body hurt, but he kept going. His rhythm never changed. Push, push, push. Breathe, breathe. Push, push, push. The monitors kept beeping their slow, artificial rhythm. No change, no improvement. No sign that anything Jake was doing was making a difference. But Jake did not stop. He could not stop. Not yet. 35 minutes had passed. Jake's arms felt like they were on fire. His back ached terribly from bending over the table for so long. Sweat dripped from his forehead onto Captain Hayes' chest, but Jake did not stop. Push, push, push. Breathe, breathe. Push, push, push. Most of the students had left. They could not watch anymore. Even some of the instructors had gone back to help other patients. Only a few people remained in the small area around Captain Hayes' bed. Dr. Zixandra was still there, her silver body barely glowing. Veltar stood nearby, his blue skin dark with worry. Lisa and Ben stayed close, ready to help if Jake needed them. "Jake," Veltar said quietly, "you have been doing this for over half an hour. Even the strongest Zephyrian could not continue much longer." Jake did not answer. He could not waste breath on talking. Every bit of his energy went into the compressions. His hands were cramped and sore, but he kept the rhythm steady. Push, push, push. Breathe, breathe. Push, push, push. The monitor still showed the same artificial heartbeat. No brain activity. No real signs of life. By every medical standard Jake had ever learned, Captain Hayes was dead, but something inside, Jake refused to accept it. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was just the human refusal to quit when things looked impossible. This is becoming concerning, Dr. Zixandra said to Professor Keth, who had come back to check on them. The human student is pushing himself beyond safe limits. Professor Keth's crystal body flickered as he thought, should we stop him? I do not know, Dr. Zixandra replied. His technique is crude, but correct. And there are rare cases in medical literature where prolonged resuscitation has worked. Very rare, but they exist. Jake heard them talking, but did not look up. He focused on his hands, on the rhythm, on the feeling of the captain's chest moving. Under his palms. 40 minutes, Jake's vision was starting to blur from exhaustion. His shoulders screamed with pain. But he had found a kind of rhythm that let him keep going. It was like running a long race. After a while, your body found a pace. It could maintain. Push, push, push. Breathe, breathe. Push, push, push. More people had come to watch. Word was spreading through the ship that a human student was attempting an impossible rescue. Some came out of curiosity. Others came to witness what they thought would be a failure. But a few came because they hoped for a miracle. How long can he keep this up? Asked Echo, the Vashanari student. I do not know, Lisa said. Humans can be very stubborn when they want to be. 45 minutes. Jake's arms were shaking now. Each compression took more effort than the last. His breathing was heavy, and he was starting to feel dizzy. But he did not stop. He thought about Captain Hayes walking into that engine room. The man had known it was probably a death sentence. But he had done it anyway, because it was the right thing to do. If the captain could face certain death to save others, Jake could face exhaustion to try to save him. Push, push, push. Breathe, breathe. Push, push, push. His technique is remaining consistent, observed Professor Keth. Even in exhaustion, he maintains proper compression depth and rate. Remarkable. Dr. Zixandra floated closer to the monitors. Heart rhythm is still artificial. No independent cardiac activity. No neural response. But she did not tell Jake to stop. Something about his determination had impressed even her. 50 minutes. Jake was running on pure willpower now. His body wanted to collapse, but his mind would not let it. He had passed the point where most people would have given up. He had passed the point where medical textbooks said to give up, but he was still going. Push, push, push. Breathe, breathe. Push, push, push. The room had grown quiet, except for the sound of Jake's breathing and the artificial beeping of the monitors. Even the aliens who did not understand human emotion could see that something special was happening. This was not just about medical technique anymore. This was about one person refusing to let another person die. 50-5 minutes. Jake's hands were cramped into claws. His back felt like it was breaking. But something had changed. The compressions felt different. Instead of pushing against solid resistance, Jake felt something give way inside the captain's chest. He looked at the monitors. Still the same artificial rhythm. Still no brain activity. But something was different. Jake could feel it in his hands. Push, push, push. Breathe, breathe. Push, push, push. Wait, Dr. Zixandra said suddenly. Her silver body flared brighter. I am detecting something. Everyone in the room turned to look at her. Her ghostly form was glowing brighter than it had since the radiation started interfering with her powers. What is it? Professor Keth asked, his crystal body reflecting her silver light. Neural activity, Dr. Zixandra said, her voice filled with surprise. Very faint, but it is there. Deep in the brain stem. Jake did not stop the compressions, but his heart jumped with hope. Brain stem activity meant the most basic parts of the captain's brain were still working. The parts that controlled breathing and heartbeat. Push, push, push. Breathe, breathe. Push, push. Impossible, whispered Echo. After this long, brain death should be complete. But Dr. Zixandra was studying her readings carefully. The radiation may have slowed his metabolism enough to protect the brain tissue. Like suspended animation. Jake felt the change more clearly now. Each compression seemed to get a tiny response from inside the captain's chest. It was like priming an old water pump, working the handle until water finally started to flow. Push. Push, breathe. Breathe. Push, push, push. Heart rhythm is changing, Professor Keth announced, watching the monitors. Still artificial, but the pattern is becoming more complex. Veltar moved closer, his blue skin beginning to glow with excitement. His bioelectric field is fluctuating. Something is happening. Jake pushed harder. His exhausted muscles found new strength from somewhere deep inside. He could feel Captain Hayes' body starting to respond. It was like a machine that had been broken for a long time, finally beginning to work again. Push, push, breathe, breathe. Push, push, push. 1 hour. Jake had been doing CPR for a full hour. His clothes were soaked with sweat. His vision was blurry, but he could feel the captain's body changing under his hands. Brain activity is increasing, Dr. Zixandra reported. Her voice was tight with concentration, moving up from the brainstem to higher functions. The monitors started beeping differently. Instead of the steady artificial rhythm Jake was creating, there were extra beats, little blips that came from the captain's own heart. Independent cardiac activity detected, Professor Keth said. Weak but present. Jake felt it too. Between his compressions, he could feel the captain's heart trying to beat on its own. It was weak and irregular, but it was real. Push, push, breathe, breathe. Push, push, push. This is incredible, Veltar said. His body is coming back. To life. More people had gathered around the bed. Students and instructors who had given up hope were returning to see what was happening. The word was spreading through the medical bay. The impossible was happening. Jake kept up the compressions. But now he was working with the captain's heart instead of for it. Each time the captain's heart tried to beat, Jake's compression helped. It along. Blood pressure is rising, Dr. Zixandra announced. Oxygen levels in the brain are improving. The captain's face, which had been gray and lifeless, was starting to get some color back. His lips were no longer blue. His skin felt warmer under Jake's hands. Push, push, push. Breathe, breathe. Push, push, push. Should we try to assist with our powers now? Asked Professor Keth. If his body is recovering, perhaps we can help accelerate the process. No, Dr. Zixandra said firmly. The radiation is still interfering, and what the human is doing is working. We should not risk disrupting it. Jake was beyond exhaustion now. He was running on something deeper than physical strength. He was running on pure determination and the growing hope that Captain Hayes might actually survive. 1 hour and 5 minutes. Suddenly, Jake felt the captain's chest move on its own. Not from the artificial breathing Jake was giving him, but a real, spontaneous breath. Respiratory function returning, Professor Keth said. His crystal voice filled with wonder. He is trying to breathe on his own. Jake kept up the compressions, but he could feel the captain's body taking over more and more of the work. The heart was beating stronger. The lungs were trying to work. Brain waves are approaching normal levels, Dr. Zixandra reported. Consciousness may be returning. The room held its breath. Everyone was watching the monitors, watching Jake, watching for any sign that Captain Hayes was truly coming back to life. Jake's hands were shaking with exhaustion, but he did not stop. Not yet, not until he was sure. Push, push, push. Breathe, breathe. Push, push, push. 1 hour and 10 minutes. Captain Hayes took a deep, shuddering breath on his own. His eyes fluttered, but did not open. But Jake could see movement behind the closed eyelids. He is dreaming, Dr. Zixandra said softly. His mind is becoming active again. Jake felt the captain's heart beat strongly under his hands. The rhythm was still irregular, but it was getting steadier with each beat. Jake, Veltar said quietly, I think you can stop now. His heart is working. But Jake was afraid to stop. What if the heart failed again when he took his hands away? What if the captain slipped back into death? It is okay, Dr. Zixandra said, reading his thoughts. His vital signs are stable. You can rest now. The transport ship dropped out of hyperspace above the planet Zephyria. Jake Morrison pressed his face to the small window and watched the blue and green world spin below them. Next to him, Amy Carter checked her gear one more time. Between them, a small cage held their most important team member. Still can't believe they let us bring Buster, Amy said. Looking at the honey badger, sleeping in his carrier. Jake smiled. The rules said each team could bring their best hunter. Buster is the best hunter I know. The other passengers on the transport ship were not human. Most of them were twice Jake's size or bigger. The Vorthik looked like giant lizards that walked on 2 legs. Their claws were as long as Jake's fingers and sharp enough to cut through metal. They kept making clicking sounds with their tongues and pointing at the humans. The ethereals looked like living crystals. They could turn their bodies clear and walk through walls. Light bent around them in strange ways. When they moved, it looked like watching water flow uphill. The Hive Lords were the worst to look at. They looked like giant ants, but with too many. Eyes and arms that bent the wrong way. Smaller versions of themselves crawled all over their bodies like living armor. The small ones had tiny wings and made buzzing sounds that hurt Jake's ears. Look at the tiny ones, one of the Vorthik said. In broken galactic standard, they bring a pet to the hunt. Maybe they plan to feed it to real predators, another Vorthik answered. They both made the clicking sound that Jake had learned was their way of laughing. An ethereal drifted closer. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind through broken glass. I scanned their biology during boarding. They have no natural weapons. No claws, no fangs, no venom. Their reaction time is 7 times slower than optimal. They will not survive the first day. Why did the Council even allow them to compete? Asked a Hive Lord. The small creatures on its body buzzed louder. This is supposed to test the galaxy's greatest hunters. These soft things are barely evolved past tree climbing. Jake felt his face get hot, but Amy put a hand on his arm. Save it for the competition, she said quietly. The transport ship landed at the competition center. The building was huge, bigger than anything Jake had ever seen. It was made of some kind of black stone that seemed to drink in light. Banners from 100 different worlds hung from tall poles. Each banner showed the symbol of a different hunting species. Earth's banner was tiny and hung near the back. It showed a simple blue and green circle. Next to it, the Vorthik banner showed red claws on a black background. The ethereal banner was just shifting light that hurt to look at directly. The Hive Lord banner moved like it was alive, covered in tiny creatures that crawled across its surface. Inside the building, thousands of beings filled the stands. Most of them were there to watch, not compete. Jake saw species he had only read about in textbooks. Some floated in the air. Others were so big they needed special seating. A few were just clouds of gas held together by force fields. The noise was incredible. Every species had its own way of making sound. Roars, clicks, buzzes, whistles, and sounds that had no names mixed together into something that made Jake's head hurt. "Welcome to the 847th Galactic Hunting Championship," boomed a voice that came from everywhere at once. "Today, we honor the greatest predators in known space." A hologram appeared in the center of the arena. It showed a being that looked like it was made of liquid metal. "I am Moderator Prime. For those new to our tradition, let me explain the rules. Each team will face 5 hunting grounds. Each ground is more dangerous than the last. Teams that survive all 5 grounds will face the final challenge." The hologram changed to show a forest. The first ground is a temperate forest zone. It contains predators from 12 different worlds. Your goal is simple: survive for 1 planetary rotation while hunting successfully. Teams that cannot adapt to the environment will be eliminated. Jake looked around at the other competitors. There were 50 teams total. Most were pairs, but some species hunted alone. A few brought whole packs. The humans were the only ones with an animal companion that was not the same species as the hunters. "The betting pools are now closed," Moderator Prime announced. "I will share the odds for entertainment. The Vorthic clan Bloodfang holds the favorite position at 2-1. The ethereal pair, Phase Hunters, stands at 3-1. The Hive Lord Collective Swarming Death is 4-1. Jake waited to hear Earth's odds. The human team from the world Earth stands at 10,000-1 against survival past the first ground. The crowd erupted in the clicking, buzzing, roaring sound that Jake now realized was laughter. Someone in the stands shouted, "Did they bring the small furry thing as emergency food?" More laughter filled the arena. Jake felt his face burning again, but this time Amy was smiling. "Let them laugh," she said. "They have no idea what they're about to see." In his carrier, Buster opened one eye and looked around. The honey badger seemed to sense the tension in the air. He stood up and sniffed toward the other competitors, his small black eyes fixed on the nearest Vorthic. Instead of showing fear, Buster's lips pulled back to show his teeth. The Vorthic, who had been laughing, suddenly stopped. There was something about the way the small earth creature looked at him that felt wrong. It was not the look of prey. It was not even the look of a fellow predator. It was something else entirely. "Competitors, prepare for transport to the first hunting ground," Moderator Prime announced. "May the strongest hunters claim victory." Jake picked up Buster's carrier. The honey badger was fully awake now, and his eyes were bright with interest. Amy shouldered her pack and checked her sidearm one more time. "Ready?" she asked. "Born ready," Jake replied. As they walked toward the transport pad, Jake heard one more comment from the stands. "Look at them. They walk like they actually think. They can win." The laughter that followed was even louder than before. Jake just smiled. In a few hours, that laughter was going to stop.